how did developing the spiritual side of yourself change or sort of add to all the other successes that you had up until that point?
Well, I think the biggest change was it reintroduced me to my Jewish fellow as community. And that community was very supportive of me, and not because I was the producer of Friends, but because I was a member of the shul. And I realized that was something I missed for a long time. You know, it was part of my growing up. And so it was very easy for me to reconnect to it in a spiritual way. And I think in growing up, we all get to a point where we realize there's something bigger than us. So whether that bigger comes from a dedication to a nonprofit or a cause or to God, that's what came back into my life. And that's what the spirituality of learning again and going to shul again, it really reconnected me to that part of myself.
Good morning and welcome to Jew in the City Speaks with your host, Allison Josephs, also known as Jew in the City. One of my favorite things about rising anti-Semitism, and I know that's a crazy thing to say, but one of my favorite things about this moment is that at least we get to meet great people. It's really tough as the world's hatred of Jews is becoming more normalized and more dangerous and more terrifying, but the community of Jews that I have met since October 7th especially, and even before that, it's a little bit of a balm on a bit of an ongoing wound. And one of the best people that I've met since October 7th is someone, you may not know his name, but you certainly know the legendary show that he was an executive producer on. His name is Kevin Bright, and he brought the world a show called Friends. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure, Allison. Nice to be here.
A lot of people obviously know the show, the characters, it's iconic. There's very few shows that have made such a big hit in terms of just sort of the impact on the zeitgeist, on culture. It's decades later, and we have kids that don't know how to make a call on a landline or don't know how to do what a phone book is. But a show that existed in an era is still carrying on. So that's just a very special thing that you have been part of in terms of the zeitgeist and culture. But I want to jump in to your story pre-Friends because I don't know if people know your backstory. So you have a little bit of a yeshiva backstory. So can you tell us, where did you grow up and how did you come to get to an Orthodox yeshiva as a child?
I grew up in Stuyvesant Town, Manhattan, New York City. I lived there all my life until 1982. And, when it came time for me to go to school, I really didn't, obviously when you're a kindergartner, you just go where they tell you to go. You're not really thinking about the higher meaning of where you're going or, what the education is going to be like. But even in the time when I was growing up in kindergarten, my parents were concerned about the public school system and that I might not succeed there. And they also wanted me to embrace my Jewish background. So they sent me to Eastside Hebrew Institute, which was on Avenue B and 8th Street. Those of you listening who now have condos in that building, yes, I'm talking about you. And so I went to yeshiva starting in kindergarten. And I think up until first grade, I was doing okay. But I think what became apparent is, not everybody is meant to go to yeshiva. And I think also that to support going to yeshiva, you need to have, the tone in the house that is compatible to the school you're going to. And I did not have that tone in my house. I lived in a very treif-heavy house. So I would go to yeshiva, and of course I'd bring my lunch, and it had to be kosher and all that. And then I'd go home, and my mom would be making bacon or something. So it was kind of conflicted, and it wasn't really followed through in the house. We did not keep Shabbat. It was even though I went to shul every week because I wanted to see my friends. they were all at shul, so that, it was more of a social thing than necessarily a religious thing. Um, but somehow I managed to stay in the yeshiva till eighth grade.
Hmm.
And then after I graduated from there, I went to Seward Park High School, which was a very big change from the yeshiva. But I think it was a really good change for me because, I had basically been in the class with the same 20 kids for
Hmm.
8 years. I never met anybody different. I never met anybody who wasn't Jewish. So the high school period was a good eye opener for me in terms of being more diverse and worldly and understanding other people's points of view.
So, your parents, it's an interesting question because I wanted to know, like, what made your parents choose a Jewish school versus just a secular private school if they weren't observant in the home? How far back in your family do you have to go to find someone who is observant? And do you have any idea why they chose yeshiva?
I do have an idea about why they chose my oldest friend, Alan Shapiro, who to this day is very religious. We became friends when we were 4 or 5 years old. We met at the Concord Hotel, where my parents went for a couple of summers. I was there for the whole summer, and Alan was my friend. And Ruthie Shapiro was my mother's best friend. And so when it came time for me to go to school, it was Ruthie that said, "Oh, no, don't send him to public school. We got Eastside Hebrew Institute. He'll be great there. And your husband can book the talent for the fundraising luncheon. It'll be a wonderful thing. He'll really enjoy it." And, she was very fond of the rabbi of the school was Max D. Raskin, who was really very inspiring. When I go to shul now and the rabbi talks, before Torah, they're very kind of immersed in the Torah portion of that week. But my rabbi, Max D. Raskin, was very interested in Jews in the world and what was happening in the world for Jews. And he was very political and very outspoken. So very, very different from the Chabad shul I go to today, where, as you know, the politics are left out of the service.
So you just gave me a great segue. So we had sort of yeshiva as the beginning part of the sandwich, and now Chabad is part of your current life. And Chabad certainly has many inroads in Hollywood. Sometimes we see different celebrities rapping. When, how, why did your relationship with Chabad start?
So after yeshiva, I was kind of, there was no uh, religious aspect of my life. I did not keep Shabbat. I probably did not go to shul on Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, Shavuos. No, I never ate in a sukkah. And I think it was that way for almost, I would say about 30, 40 years, that I was, separated from going to shul. And Yom Kippur came around one year, and my parents were in town, and I knew they would want to go to shul on Yom Kippur. So I told my assistant, call the Reformed shul in Malibu and get us 4 tickets. And, we're going to go there for Yom Kippur. And so she gets back to me and she says, "Oh, I spoke to the rabbi there." And I was wondering, how did she get to the rabbi? Wasn't there somebody in between? And so I spoke to the rabbi. He's very happy you're coming, and they're going to save 4 seats for you. And there's no charge, there's no tickets. And I go, "No tickets, no charge," because that is the background I came from. There was always tickets for Yom Kippur. Even in the yeshiva school that I went to, you had to make a reservation, and it was also a time of giving. So the two were connected. So anyhow, she made these reservations for us. And I have the address of the shul, and I'm driving down the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, and I go past, according to the GPS, I go past the Reform Synagogue, and I realize I'm not going to the Reform Synagogue. I'm going to Chabad. And now I'm very nervous because I just think it's going to be so religious and so long. And my parents are going to, get antsy about the whole thing. And we walked in, and literally from the moment we walked in, there was a warmth and welcoming that really took me aback. I was very surprised. My dad was taken to the front of the shul and sitting with the elders who were up there, or the elders of the shul. And my mom was taken by the Rebbitzin and, put in a section with her. And they were both attended to. So, if you want to get to my heart, just be nice to my parents, and I'm there. And I met Rabbi Levi Kunin, and the two of us just hit it off in a certain way even though obviously our perspectives and backgrounds were very, very, very different, we just hit it off immediately. And I still go to Chabad to this day, from that, happenstance. There are no accidents, is no coincidence. It was meant to be. And I maintain my friendship with the rabbi, and I've been involved. I produced the telethon secretly for a couple of years. It was a thing where my name was on it, but it wasn't on it as a producer. I really didn't want to take that kind of responsibility. I wanted it to be a little bit looser.
Wait, did Joey talk about dancing rabbis on one episode of Friends?
No, that was on an episode of Joey, the sequel to Friends. And we did a spot for Chabad, both on Friends and on Joey. On Friends, we did a Chabad spot, and on Joey, we did the one where, the dancing rabbis come into the living room.
Got it. I was like, wait, I never put that connection together, but yeah, there's got to be someone that has some connection to get that into the show. So yes, I love what you said, that it was the accident of your assistant that got you there, but there are no accidents. And I totally understand I don't want to say that the conflict, the contradiction of seeing one thing at school and something else at home, and that being confusing and not sort of, I guess, sticking with the child. But what a beautiful kind of end to the story, that you found a way home, that it became part of your home as well. So when you go to Chabad, do you learn there? Is it shul? Is it tefillin? Like, what types of ways do you interact with the rabbi?
I'm very fortunate that because of my friendship with the rabbi, I see him usually once a week. And we wrap tefillin and we learn for, an hour or two every time he comes to the house. So that's now a weekly thing in my life. And I don't go to shul every week. I'm not going to say that. It's probably more like once or twice a month. But I see the rabbi every week, so.
So what point of your career did this happenstance, or
I think it's happened about year 5 of Friends, something. So go 94, so about 1999.
So
as Prince would say.
At this point, you're rich, you're famous, you have a hit. It's not an unknown, you have a hit. And now there's a new element to your life that seems to be adding something more, because if you had it all, you might not be coming back. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, in America, sort of the American dream is the career, the fame, the money, doing what you love. But then kind of, where's the spiritual success? Because I will tell you, for my story, the model that I was given was all those things, and also be a good person. And I'm sure your parents taught you to be a mensch as well. But how did developing the spiritual side of yourself change, or sort of add to all the other successes that you had up until that point?
Well, I think the biggest change was it reintroduced me to my Jewish fellow as community. And that community was very supportive of me, and not because I was the producer of Friends, but because I was a member of the shul. And I realized that was something I missed for a long time. It was part of my growing up. And so it was very easy for me to reconnect to it in a spiritual way. And I think in growing up, we all get to a point where we realize there's something bigger than us. So whether that bigger comes from a dedication to a nonprofit or a cause, or to God. That that's what came back into my life, and that's what the spirituality of learning again and going to shul again. It really reconnected me to that part of myself.
Because Kevin, you were on top of the world when you accidentally ended up in the shul and then you found something even above yourself. And that is so beautiful. And, there's a lot of great things that have come out of Hollywood and also some less good things and a lot of ego. And there's a humility in saying that, I may be at the top, but there's something even above me. And there are so few people like that I talk to. And it's really, you're such a shining example of how you can have it all and then kind of the cherry on top. Any particular piece of Torah that you've learned with your rabbi, or any piece of wisdom that especially has touched you or that you think of?
Sometimes what we do is we'll take out a book and I'll just run my finger across it. It's very random, and let's see what we'll end up learning today. And somehow I always pick the most outside things to learn. I'll tell you, we were, teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, and I run my finger through the book, and there's this story about. I don't know if I'm going to get it completely right now, but I think it'll give you the sense. There's this story about a woman, and her husband thinks that she's cheating on her. She's cheating on him, and she goes away. He sends her away, and she's on a boat, and the captain of the boat is being very amorous towards her, but she's still married to her husband, and she's turning him down and everything else. And then I think the end of it was the captain was her husband in disguise, which is a little bit hard to believe that she wouldn't recognize her own husband. But anyhow, that was the story, and to me, that was just a story that I think I get lucky because, obviously I'm somebody who's immersed in comedy. I love comedy. Comedy was my life. So to pick randomly a chapter of that, I think, it's something, wow, there is something going on here, because for me to pick that out of all the things I could have picked, it was pretty crazy. So,
That's
so
very
that's
cool.
what comes to mind. Is it's just I think the other one that I randomly picked is, I don't want to say it too graphically, but the part of the Torah where Noah's sons do something very
Inappropriate, yeah.
very tragic to him. And so I had never really learned that before. All my time in yeshiva, I never heard anything about the sons doing such a terrible thing to him. And so that was a little bit surprising in the learning.
You got the PG Torah when you were in elementary and middle school, and now you get the adult version of it. I think what you're showing here is that from your life experiences, what you thought the Chabad experience would be, what you thought the Orthodox experience would be, might be judgmental, might be very strict and off-putting, and then the real life version of it was so warm and human. And since, at JITC Hollywood Bureau, we're very interested in the representation of Jews. How do you think the entertainment community is doing at depicting those bearded men with the hats compared to what your experience has been in real life?
The bearded men with the hats and how they're depicted, I think, is my problem with it is when you see it, it's often connected to either pawnbrokers or the Diamond District. It's very narrow, and it lacks any spiritual foundation or respectful representation. It's always, kind of in. And sometimes it's even, there are Jewish mobsters, which, why should the Italians get everything, but, that's okay. There can be a Jewish mobster. We know there have been Jewish mobsters, through the times. But I think, too often that pawnbroker, diamond dealer, money manager thing is the depiction. And I think it needs to be diversified and broadened. I think, representation of Jews on television is, it covers a wide breadth. And there are shows like Nobody Wants This, which there's been a lot of conversation about because the show is very popular, and it shows a relationship between a rabbi and a non-Jewish woman. And so obviously that's going to stimulate a lot of different feelings about that and how that's represented. And I think that one thing I'll say for the show, and the little bit I've seen of this season, I saw the whole first season. I haven't seen the whole of this season. I think they have made some changes in the representation that have been very positive.
Mhm.
So the Jewish women on the show were kind of Yenta focused, I'll say, and I think in this season that's been toned down quite a bit. So I think they are hearing the audience and
Mhm.
respecting what the audience is feeling.
Mhm. I would add to your, portrayal of, Hasidic Jews as diamond dealers and pawnbrokers. I would add in severeness, strictness, sort of sometimes religion as silly and very rarely meaningful. And then also that sort of continued story we see of people trying to escape, people hating their life, rejecting their life, needing to get away. And I think one of the biggest challenges in the Orthodox representation, and I have my complaints with Jewish representation in general, is that I think there are so few writers in the writers' room that have had the kind of experiences that you've had. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be someone only Orthodox writing about it, but at least it should be lived experience. And if it's lived experience, it shouldn't only be the negative lived experience, because if you were only part one of your story, the negative yeshiva piece, the not quite fitting in and staying maybe longer than you should have when the home wasn't aligned with those values, that could have given you a very different perspective than the part two of the story. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think?
Well, some of it's still, as far as the strictness goes. I mean, it depends how orthodox you're getting, because obviously, what people don't understand is they think there's just one, Chabad is it, or
Yep.
there's one section of Orthodox, and obviously, as we know, there are quite a few, and I think the more Chabad type is what you see represented on television. We don't see the men with the fur hats and what is that group called? Satmar?
Yeah, Satmar. Well, I would, within the Hasidic world, Chabad is a piece of Hasidic. You do see on shows like Unorthodox, they did have, Satmar there. They did see
Oh, okay.
Strimals there. And you sometimes see that on Law and Order. I would say what you rarely see is modern Orthodox. Sort of the choices are generally very secular Jewish or, very Hasidic and not so much space in between. And as you correctly point out, there's a lot of diversity within the Orthodox world, within the general Jewish world, and that should be on the screen as well.
Yeah. And I think, you can look at any religion, and there's obviously lots of levels of everything, in terms of strictness, in terms of adherence. So, yeah, and to focus on that in modern times, I think is a mislabeling. That's not the way it is. Many people would think, how can you have a relationship with an Orthodox rabbi? What do you have in common? And my answer would be everything.
I
You
love
know.
that. I think also I want to point out one thing about the strictness. Rabbi Levi may be living a strict version of Judaism, but he's also a very accepting person. And I
Yes.
think that nuance of a person could live strictly and also with acceptance and warmth is something that is not really known. And I have to tell you, I found that my time in the entertainment industry, I face a lot of judgment from fellow people in the entertainment industry that have all sorts of assumptions about what I must be like if I'm an Orthodox Jew. And what they don't give me the chance to express or to explain is that I have my standards in the way that I live, but my heart is open to good people and to not prejudging people. And how ironic is it that they're the ones prejudging me when my heart is open to accepting different types of people?
It's a very complicated world out there, and unfortunately, if everybody was raised in a way, whether you're religious or not, but raised in a way of being respectful of other people, of being generous to charities, of understanding the soul of tzedakah is not about giving to major organizations. It's about helping people. It's
Mhm.
about bringing light to the world. And I think that's the thing that really should be focused on. What Jews are trying to do is bring light to the world. And that, unfortunately, now is totally, suppressed by what's going on in Israel. And, it's a shame that, now the people who are bringing light to the world are a little reticent to bring light to the world because they're afraid of what the world is going to do to them and how the world is going to accept the light that they're trying to bring. That's what my directive is whatever happens in Israel, I can't control, but I can control what I bring to the world, and I hope that's light. And now that I have my first granddaughter, I am more focused on I'm trying to create a better world for her.
Love that. Beautiful. I don't want to not mention maple syrup and candies and popcorn. Um, 100% kosher. So you've got a side business. You don't just create television. You've got a business so tell us about working with the Chabad rabbi. Tell us more about it.
There's a Chabad rabbi locally in Saratoga Springs, New York, Rabbi Abba, and we have a farm. My wife is from Saratoga Springs, and her family has had a farm there for over 100 years. The property has been in the family, and once we took it over, we have expanded the property to now being a 400-acre farm. And we realized as we were doing this, initially we were doing it because we didn't want the land around us to be sold and big, communities, sprouting up, 40 homes or something surrounding us. That's not what the country life has been for us. You want it nice and quiet. So initially we were just, protecting our own land. But then, we realized, sustaining a farm is tough. You start to learn the plight of the farmer in America and why things are so tough, and what happens if your crop goes bad, and what happens if you get insects. There's so many things that can change the life of a farmer in a minute. So the man who owned the farm before us, he had started a very small maple syrup business, but it hadn't been. It was really about selling locally, making a couple of $100 a year, from it. And so now, myself and my nephew Ryan, we've expanded it to now we have 1,000 trees tapped, and we produced the syrup. And I contacted the rabbi because I wanted everybody to buy my syrup, especially my fellow. So we got a kosher labeling for the syrup, and now we also make maple flavored popcorn that we also got koshered. So if you're thinking about gifts for Hanukkah, I'm going to do my pitch here. You just send us a list of names and we'll take care of the rest. There'll be a card inside. We'll send a beautiful tin of popcorn.
What's it called? What's the name of the
So the
brand?
name of go online to Twin Leaf Farms. That's Twin Leaf Farms, and you go on our website. And I hope you'll consider us for your Hanukkah gifts this year.
Okay, amazing. It's the right time of year to be talking about maple syrup. So we got to
That's
get that
right.
timely pitch in. Well, this was really eye-opening and just beautiful to hear your story. And I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere before. So we wish you continued success in spreading your light, in gaining the light, and we should hear good news soon because it's continued tough times out there, and this brought me a little bit of extra light myself today.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having me on the show, Allison, and I just want to say I really appreciate what you're doing. And the Jewish people need advocacy more than ever now, and for you to step up and be at the forefront of it, I think it is an amazing thing. So I thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, and thanks for all your guidance along the way. And thank you all for listening. You can catch us same time, same place next week.